Welcome back to the series. So, today I'm going to be talking about deconditioning, deconstructing, and decentering. And when I say decentering, I always mean decentering men, which is really centering yourself as a woman. Because we've spent so many years and decades programmed to center everyone else and not center ourselves. So, before I get started, I really want to say thank you to those of you who engaged with my first video a few days ago. I wasn't expecting such a warm reception, so that was really lovely. Thank you so much. Engage, comment. There was a man there that's saying that, I know this is for women, but I'm happy to be here, and I have a girlfriend. I'm a 30-year-old man. Look, I'm really open to any kind of conversation and discussions with emotionally healthy men who are maybe deconstructing themselves. You are welcome. It's not explicitly just for women, but I will just always speak from the female perspective. Now, today we're talking about deconditioning, deconstructing, and decentering, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my own personal experience with this. So, my journey started in terms of decentering about 16 years ago, and I was in my early 30s. I was single at the time, um, and but these words didn't exist. Decentering, deconstructing, deconditioning. I didn't know anything about conditioning. I didn't know anything about the good girl, people pleaser that I was. All I knew is I just had enough. I'd had enough of being chosen instead of choosing myself. I had enough of being on the receiving end of what other people wanted. And I really just wanted to own myself, my desire, my pleasure, and to make decisions rather than just go along with something, to actually be intentional with my decisions. So this is what I called my hoe era. If you know, you know. And obviously back then these words didn't exist. Hoe era, deconditioning, deconstructing. I didn't know any of that. But now looking back, that's what it was. It was my hoe era, which was me taking charge of my own desire, my own sexuality, my own pleasure, and going out there in the world and I guess giving zero fucks and being completely detached. So allow myself to be desired, allow myself to, instead of just accepting whoever liked me and just going along with it, I was being more discerning and I was deciding what I wanted and just kind of throwing caution to the wind and not expecting anything from it, just living my life. And I don't regret that. And that is something that I wouldn't say it's for everyone, but for me, it really got me confident in who I am as a woman. It built confidence in myself, it built confidence in my abilities, it built confidence in the fact that I didn't just have to go along with someone else's agenda. I could actually just fully own my body, own myself, and decide who I wanted to be with or not. And that was, essentially a fun time in my life. But it's not for everyone, obviously. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to have a hoe era. Highly recommend it, but you don't have to. And this was about like 16 years ago. Now looking back and doing this work, I was decentering. I was decentering men and I was centering myself. I was focusing on myself, doing my own thing, not in a necessarily selfish way, but I was just not focused on men and what they wanted and what they were doing and, how they were feeling. How do I feel? What do I want? Do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Do I want to be with this person or not be with this person? And just completely detached from any outcome that this could turn into something, that this was anything more than what it was. I just was, you know, looking back, it's how we would phrase it back then, which is be more like a man. That's the best way I can describe it. Just kind of not have any attachment and just, living your life and doing what you want to do when you want to do it. It's a bit of a shame that that's how we see it, being like a man, but that's kind of how it was. I guess that's how I would say it. But I was fully intentional and loved that period of my life. Now, that was decentering. I didn't know at the time. Now I know. That was decentering. However, that was short lived. A, because, you can't just go along with your life doing that into perpetuity. I mean, some people do, and that's absolutely fine. That wasn't what I wanted to do personally. I did want to be in a long term healthy relationship at some point. But I didn't decondition. I went straight to decentering without really changing who I was as a person without really doing that deeper internal work. Now, I have this 3D process, I guess you would call it, which is deconditioning. We have to decondition first. You can't decondition if you don't know what your conditioning is. If you're not aware that you are a good girl people pleaser, if you're not aware that you betray yourself and compromise who you are as a person, and that you abandon who you are, and that you have zero boundaries, like you don't know that. When you do know what your conditioning is, that's when you can start deconditioning. I hadn't done that level of work yet. I just went straight to decentering, living my life, which was fine, but it was short lived because when you haven't changed on an identity level, then you do fall into old traps and old programming, and that's why I eventually got into a relationship that was not the best for me. It was not good for me at all, actually, and that was the catalyst for my own growth, evolution, expansion when I decided to leave that very unhealthy situation. Now, when we decondition, which is doing that inner work, that identity level work, because we cannot start deconstructing and decentering when we do not know who the fuck we are, why we're here, why we make the decisions that we make, where our shortfalls are, where our blind spots are. If you're a good girl people pleaser, you probably know you bend over backwards for people, but you don't really maybe appreciate how that really F's with your decisions and leads you into certain situations that you would not usually choose to be in. So when we are able to really see where our conditioning is and how it's led us to where we are, like today, draw a line in the sand, then we can start deconditioning. That is like identity level work. And then when we can start deconditioning, that is when we can start deconstructing. You can't just skip steps like I did 16 years ago straight to decentering. I mean, I didn't know there was a process. You can decenter men and center yourself. You can fully do that. But without the deconditioning and then the deconstructing, which is part of this like transformation, this evolution, this expansion, and your growth as a woman, unless you do those steps, you will always fall back into old patterns, which I did. I got into a very unhealthy relationship, one that, I was becoming a shell of myself in. I'm not going to go into too much detail, maybe later on in another few videos, whatever. But the deconstructing, it's like almost you have to admit to yourself where you have contributed to where you are. Because yes, things happen to us. We are conditioned a certain way. We are socialized a certain way. Who our caregivers and parents were, and where we went to school, which country we live in, all of those things. But ultimately, as women, we are conditioned usually to be very palatable, approachable, smile, be pretty, don't ruffle any feathers, don't rock the boat. And if you do any of those things, then you are seen as problematic. You are seen as maybe a bit of a loudmouth, and nobody wants to be seen as a loudmouth. Nobody. We want to be these like dainty little fragile things. Not always, but deep down. And I know this has happened in my world with the women that come to me, that are attracted to me and my work. They all have this like fire within them that has been stuffed down, snuffed out, watered down by those around them. Maybe they've been told or it's been communicated to them that they are too much. Maybe you've learnt from a very young age that you can't show these sides of you because it won't be acceptable, or that you're going to be too much for people, or not enough because you can't reach people's expectations of you, whatever it may be. Now, for me personally, that decentering was a wonderful time, but it was on a rocky foundation because I hadn't done any deconditioning work. I hadn't even known what my conditioning was at the time. And then you can't deconstruct. Deconstruct is really looking at where is this internalized patriarchy and misogyny deep within me? Where does it show up? Because it shows up in a lot of not very obvious ways. And it could be a comment that somebody makes and you laugh about it, or you go along with it. Or it could be in maybe a man in your life that you love and respect says something or does something that is actually not the right thing, but we accept it because it's just what's always been done, it's always been said, and everyone around us accepts it as that's just how it is. When we start deconstructing, it can be very confronting. because you start to realize how deeply entrenched it is and how it's seeped into all of your whole being. This, women should be this, men should be this. Women can't do that, men can only do this. That's not very this, it's too much of that. Whatever it may be. And those limitations are so suffocating for women. They are so suffocating. They make you shrink because those around you maybe can't handle it, or those around you will think that you're too much, or that your flame is burning way too brightly, you know? And let me know in the comments if this resonates with you, because a lot of us dumb ourselves down. We snuff out our own lights. We make ourselves smaller for the comfortability of others around us. And that's not on us to do. It's like, if I'm too much, if I'm shining too bright, if I'm too bold, if I'm too whatever, I'm not for you. And that's okay. But we don't say that. We don't even think that. We're like, oh no, I need to make sure that I'm this for this person. I need to make sure that I'm accepted in this group. I need to make sure that this person still loves me. So I need to shrink myself down and get into this little box that they've created for me. When you know that you are way more than that. So part of this deconstructing, it is not easy. It's not easy when you are single. It is even more nuanced when you are partnered or remarried or in some kind of long-term relationship, because the other person has their own conditioning. You have your conditioning as a woman, and the other person has their conditioning as a man, as a woman, whatever, whoever your partner is. So you are deconditioning and deconstructing without blowing up your life. Sometimes you are going to blow up your life because you have some realizations and some tough decisions to make as you go on this journey. I'm not going to lie. But if you are in a loving relationship, healthy relationship, and you don't want to blow up your life, how do you then decondition? How do you then deconstruct and decenter when you are partnered, when you are married? That's a whole other ball game, and it is not easy. There are a lot of nuances, and that's what I'm speaking about. This is why I'm here, because this is the journey that I've been on, and this is the journey that I'm currently on as things are unfolding. These are the things I'm finding, these are the things I'm learning, and these are the thoughts and feelings that come up, because it can be confronting. We don't want to look at it, even though we know there's something that needs to be done and needs to be looked at. And it can feel like a really big challenge, like this really big thing looming over you. And it's like, do I just sit back and pretend that everything's fine and just go along with whatever's happening, the status quo? Now, you can do that for a period of time. You can bury your head in the sand, but it's more like when the cat is out of the bag, it becomes unbearable to stay where you are in that same identity, in that same spot, when you know better, when you know that centering yourself is what is going to free you, when you know that you have conditioning that needs to be deconditioned, when you know that there are so many things running in my life that I need to deconstruct. Now, I'm not saying it's hard work, but it is work that you have to decide to do every single day and be on this journey. And then it eventually is not even a decision, because it just becomes who you are, because you want more for your life. You want to be free. You want to be this sovereign being, whether you're in a relationship or not. Because we do actually have better relationships when we become free and untangle ourselves from these systems, from these patriarchal systems. Yes, they are external to us, but they are internal as well. And I believe personally, we need to work on the internal conditioning and the misogyny that we have as men and women before we can even look out there. It starts with us internally. So that's what I wanted to just really share today. The deconditioning. You can't decondition what you don't know what your conditioning is. You cannot start deconstructing until you know what you are conditioned and what you are deconditioning. And then decentering, yes, you can decide to do that. You can do that without doing the deconditioning and the deconstructing, but you will fall into the same old patterns. You will keep meeting the same men or the same kinds of people. You'll keep attracting the same kinds of dynamics in your life, and it will just manifest very differently. But it'll be the same thing ultimately until you do that work. So I know a lot of women my age, there's a lot of rage, there's a lot of anger. We are going through perimenopause or menopause. A lot is happening, and you will feel like you are you're at breaking point. It's like, do I blow up my marriage? What the fuck do I want? Is it my hormones? Is it just because I'm tired and burnt out raising children? What is it? What's the reason? It is all of those things, in my opinion, but there's also the nuance of trying to deconstruct in relationship, in a marriage, without blowing up your life, unless that's what you want to do. But I'm not here to tell anybody to go and blow up their life. But it's a true and real thing that we as women, these women who are waking up, these women who are rising into their power and their sovereignty, we are realizing that there are so many other things going on that contribute to where we are right now and contribute to our unhappiness, our unrest, and our exhaustion, basically, as well as everything that's happening out there in the world. All right, so I just wanted to share that with you. That's a little bit about my journey, my experience with deconditioning, deconstructing, and decentering. Because once we center ourselves as women, like, we really are free from anything that's happening outside of us. We are more discerning with the partners that we pick. We are more discerning with the friends and the friendships that we keep. We are more discerning with the family and the family members that maybe aren't aligned with us, and a bit more on the emotionally and healthy side of the spectrum. Life becomes very simple when we decondition, deconstruct, and start decentering, which means centering ourselves. And it's not always necessarily men, it's just stop centering other people outside of you. I'm all about freedom. I want peace and I want freedom in my life. That's all I want. And in order to get that, there are some things that need to happen and some decisions that need to be made. But I'm really speaking to the woman who has already decided to make these decisions. It's just more of, okay, how do I do that then? Especially when I'm married to someone that I love and I don't want to blow up my life, but I'm noticing all of this programming, all of these lies that have been sold to me, and I've just woken up and I'm like, what the fuck is my life? If that's you, follow along. If you're married to someone like that and you maybe think that she's experiencing something like that, follow along. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on what I've shared here. Again, thank you so much for engaging with my first few videos. And this is just going to be a continual discussion in the series. And again, I don't have my mic right now, but I think the audio is fine. So, path of least resistance. All right, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.